Here for Scratching the Surface at Blood in the Snow, and it's great to be able to come front to a project that is really offbeat, unique, weird, something that embodies everything, and that is Puppet Killer. So how did you two get together on this?
Great story, actually, I guess, about Community.
Yes.
I was a casting director and one of the actors in a film called Suspension that Kevin wrote, which was fantastic. And I mean, we kind of knew each other, but we were all guests at Phoenix Comic-Con. And it was so hot one day, we just needed air conditioning, so we drove to the Grand Canyon, literally to hide in the car. And I already had the concept for Puppet Killer, and I was actually pitching a gentleman in the back seat named Sage Brocklebank, who plays a cop in Suspension, and he plays Mr. Officer in Puppet Killer. And I was pitching him the idea, and Kevin was driving.
Yeah, I was driving, and all of a sudden I hear Lisa talk about this Puppet Killer movie with this puppet, pink 3-foot puppet named Simon that goes on this killing rampage in a cabin in the woods, and my brain just went off. I'm like, holy shit, here I go. And I started seeing scenes of the film right away. And then Lisa's like, Kev, do you want to talk about this when we get back to Vancouver? And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's talk about this. So we met for a few story meetings. We're so hardcore horror movie fans. She understands the 80s, 70s, 80s genre. I do. I lived and breathed it growing up as a kid. So both of it was such a natural fit. And we just had so much fun just figuring out the references and what we wanted to put in and the story. So I don't know, it was seamless. And I remember starting the draft in August, and we literally went to camera in December.
That's a hell of a quick turnaround.
It was a really fast turnaround.
But that's a very good area. You talked about Community with Vancouver.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brilliant minds out there.
No, there absolutely is. And I mean, the idea of Puppet Killer was already going pretty strong before I met Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so lucky, obviously, that we worked so well together, and he just did such an amazing job. It's scary to give someone else your idea and go, are we going to argue? Are we going to be in conflict? Am I going to... It was the most joyous, seamless opportunity to work with Kevin. But the concept was already up. I think we had already cast some of the actors. Every actor was actually an offer, and they all agreed to do it before the script was finished.
The movie was actually rolling. The pre-production was actually getting into gear, and I was still we were working on the script.
Right.
It was just this fast and furious thing where it's just like...
Yeah, I liken it to chucking a boulder down a hill and then chasing after it.
Yeah,
because
it really was.
I was doing a festival circuit with another film, and everyone always asks you, what's your next project?
Right.
So I was like, it's Puppet Killer, because, let's get it going. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, fuck, it's Puppet Killer. And then it was like, holy fuck, we're making Puppet Killer. And actors, and it happened so fast. I mean, even so, it was over a year of development before we went to picture, but that's still, for a concept like this, it was, it was the Vancouver film community that just came out and said, let's do it.
Concept, right? I remember when we had our script read through with the cast, and they fucking laughed and they got it. And
I've never had a script
I
read
know,
where we had
right?
to start and stop so many times because
so
people were laughing
they
so
wanted
hard.
to be involved, right? There was an opportunity for all of us because we're all fans. I mean, we're horror movie fans first and foremost, who just happen to make a horror movie for the fans. For us and the horror fans. So it was important for us to really have all those Easter eggs and references that people would pick up on. So.
And that's one thing I love about Puppet Killer is you're not afraid to embrace what you are.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be something different. You're not trying to define or defensive against it. You embrace the 70s, the 80s, even some aspects of the 90s when it comes to just about every side of this project. Sir, director, and actress. And I mean, I've met filmmakers who go in front of the camera and want that exposure on both sides. They feel it's more fulfilling creative, but also producing it as well. I mean, did you sleep, eat, anything like that? Talk about that, Lisa.
I don't think I've slept in 4 years.
Wow, you look great.
Thank you. I don't, by the way. Well, it's an interesting story. So I was an actress first. I've been an actress for over 10 years. I love acting, but I think innately I was always a filmmaker who was too scared to come out of the closet as a filmmaker, especially in a world that doesn't really go hey, female Mexican director in horror, here's a door open for you. So I was actually directing another film. Alex was in it, which is when I realized he had to be Jamie. Lisa Giroux was in it, who plays his girlfriend, Jessie. And I was talking to my DP at the time about Puppet Killer because it was kind of going, and I was pitching someone else as a director, and he was just, because I'd never directed a feature yet, and he was like, girl, I was going to play the role that Gigi plays, actually, originally. And I love that I didn't, because she does such an amazing job. But I was as an actor, I was going to be in this film. I was so honored to work with Richard Harmon and Ponovic and Lee Majub. Like, I'd never acted with these caliber of people.
And Kyle Cassie.
Yeah, he wasn't cast yet at the time. But my DP just sat me down and he said, "What are the books on your bookshelf? What are the biographies?" And I went, "Oh, fuck, they're all directors." And he was like, "Yeah, it's about time." So that's when I put on the director hat. That's when I pulled myself off as a lead, because I didn't want to be so egotistical that I failed the film. And I didn't think on my first feature that I could act in it and be in it. And so I'm still in it in a smaller capacity. But the producer hat was out of necessity. This is a small film. You know, I wanted to take that hat off a lot while I was directing, and I really look forward to the next one when I don't have to wear that hat, to see what I can pull off when I can just focus on directing. But yeah, it was pure indie, like scratching at the walls, begging, borrowing, and stealing for years to get it done. I mean, fuck, we just finished it in July.
Yeah. Quick turnover.
No, it took 3 years.
No, I meant a quick turnover to go.
Yes,
that's right.
And we've been out. We world premiered September 15th.
In Seoul.
No, that was we world premiered at Midwest Monster Fest. But it's been out 2 months. We've played 5 continents. Played probably 25 festivals. We're on our way to New York City Horror Fest.
Film Fest.
Like, Sean and everyone for
yeah, I'm so excited.
It's going to be great. I'm going to be my first time I'm missing it in 5 years.
Oh, no.
Really? I was there in 2004 with my first feature, Savage Island.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm excited to go back with Puppet Killer.
The Sinopolis that they're in
really?
now is a beautiful.
Nice.
It's not like Tribeca.
Yeah, because that's where we were screened in Tribeca, yeah.
But it's a beautiful building. It's going to sound beautiful.
I have been told, because I mean, I love our 5.1 mix. Our sound designer and our composers are amazing.
Okay, we'll get to this.
Oh, I know. There's
so let me ask you, Kevin, about the concepts there.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that attracts you that you start the writing process with?
I mean, as a writer, I hear a lot of concepts. You know, my brain is constantly thinking of movie ideas all the time, right? And some will stick, some will not. Most of them don't. You know, so for me, when I hear a concept like Lisa's concept, for whatever reason, it just landed like a gut reaction.
Okay.
Like I suddenly go, oh my God, and then my little movie machine in my brain, that I call it my little movie factory. Yes, the fucking wheels start to turn, and that's when I know I'm in trouble. Right? So now I'm like, that's what happened, right? I literally started seeing scenes of the film when Lisa started talking about it, like instantly. So that's the sign for me. I go, oh shit, here I go. And that's how I sort of maneuver through this. If I don't feel really, like lit up and really passionate about the project, it's hard for me to like sit there and try, but if I'm like, holy shit, I really love this, it becomes seamless and easy in a way, right? Because I've been watching this stuff since I was a kid. So it's in our Lisa as well, like it's in our DNA in a way, like, so for me, writing it was just really like lightning almost. I have that experience. My last script that I wrote that we're actually doing together next, that was a similar experience. Yeah, just boom, like lightning, and I just can't stop until I'm done. I usually spend around 2 to 3 months. I'm fast. I'm able to really get in there and really be with it. So my experience is just really, it's intense writing stuff, because I really live and breathe it for the time I'm writing. I can't even watch TV. My brain is just making a movie right now.
That's amazing. That's like having an editing cap right on you. You know what's right there.
And I want to say too, because everyone, I don't know if they do or I just think it, but I get a lot of credit because I created it, but I can't express how lucky. Yes, and like the chance that we happened to be there, that it all happened. Like, I would not have the film I have without Kevin, regardless of me creating it. Like, I didn't have the script the way that he had it. He just came in and handed me the child I wanted to birth, and was like, Jack Fox designed Simon. He's my puppy daddy, but I said puppy daddy, puppet daddy. But yeah, I just want to give Kevin credit. It's so sweet.
Unpacking here in this interview.
Oh my God.
I miss my dogs. But yeah, no, to hand someone your idea and hope that it will come back in a way that will work. And it came back better than I could have ever asked. So I just really need to give you credit for that.
That's very nice also, because there's a lot of times where the director will look at the writer and go, it's all me. It's
no.
And
well,
there's plenty of interviews.
I know there is, but also too, I keep getting a lot of credit for the pacing. That's the freaking editor, my finishing editor, Julia. It takes a village. And the people that, there are the Kevin Smiths and Tarantinos. I'm not one of them. It was my family that helped me create. Thank you.
You were yourself.
Thank you. But yeah, I really do give my crew credit because it was all of us that made this film.
So let's talk about your cast. Start with Alex. As we had said, he can play a 7-year-old girl. He can play a 15-year-old boy. He could play a brute. He can play... there's so many roles. An ape. He's so versatile in everything he does. And it's like Michael Clark Duncan. It's like Ving Rhames. It's like these actors who are larger than life, but have the soul of someone who looks like me, or is my size. And it's very hard to find that. So what made, at the top, him the right for it? And what about the rest of the cast?
Well, I was actually directing a comedy called I Want to Date You, and I had never met Alex to the best of my knowledge. We'd been in passing at film events, but and when they made him an offer to do the film, he said something along the lines of he would if he was in a scene with me. I don't remember how this played out. It was years ago. So we worked with the writer and we wrote this scene where the two of us were kind of an incestuous brother and sister. And I was like, okay, let's see how this plays. And he came in with these ideas. He was so funny. His dry, deadpan delivery, everything he brought to that scene, I went, oh, fuck, you're Jamie. And so I had a conversation, and I was like, this is the idea. And he's like, a 15-year-old boy? And I was like, can you trust me? You can do this. And he did. He destroyed. So it was that moment. Lisa Drew, who plays his girlfriend, was also in I Want to Date You. She's so good. And I am an improv person first. I trained at Chicago Second City. I own an improv school.
Wow.
And so,
I'm not worthy.
No.
I'm not worthy. That's awesome.
I didn't do the full-time program, but I got a scholarship for it. And improv is in my brain. And I love comedy. I get comedy, right? And so with Lisa, directing her, I would have these flash moments as a director, and I would go, oh, can we do this? And she would instantly get it, deliver it perfect. And so I was like, well, you're obviously the fucking girlfriend. Lee Majube, who plays Curtis and is also the voice of Simon, was actually the actor when I was casting Suspension, Kevin's film. When I got inspired to write this, he was my reader. And I called him first. And I just said, I've got this bizarre idea. Tell me I'm crazy. And he went, no, I fucking love it. Because he loves horror films too.
Right.
So he was my first phone call. He was actually in my first story sessions before I met Kevin. And then Richard Harmon, who's amazing, is Lee's best friend. And so Lee literally did the whole, me and Richard have never done a film together, and I'm not worthy of having Richard Harmon in my film. So he was like, do you mind? And I'm like, do we mind? Come on. These guys are amazing. And then Gigi, who is amazing. Like I said, I was originally going to play that role. And when I took on the director role, I really wanted a Mexican female in my film. And I don't know what I would have done if Gigi said no. I didn't have a backup plan. Obviously, there's amazing women out there. I would have found someone. But Gigi was just hey girl, this has got to be you. Vancouver female horror director, rise up. And she lovingly said yes. And then Kyle Cassie was the only one I had a hard time casting. His character, because Alex is 6'5", Lee Majube is 5'11", and because we're never going to comment on the age or the joke, I needed someone very specifically right in the middle of their heights to balance it out so that Lee wasn't absurdly, Lee is not short, but next to Alex, right? So it was more of a physicality thing. I know that Dan Payne was asking, we were pitching Dan, and Dan wanted it, Michael Eklund, but their height wouldn't work. And so it was actually Alex that brought me Kyle Cassie. He lived in LA. I saw a demo reel. He's so talented and so funny and dead. I almost died. Yeah. We did a Skype session, and I was like, you're the guy. And he's not a blonde, but obviously my dumb blonde, because I'm flipping everything, has to be the male. And I remember him calling me from LA, and he's on FaceTime, and he's getting his hair just beautifully dyed blonde. And I was like, I love you. So he Skyped in for our table read, and I didn't meet him till day one of filming. But
wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about a couple things, especially. One, making sure that there is the aspect of heritage when it comes to Gigi especially. Gigi's so talented, she's able to carry so much. And also the idea of flipping a lot of the tropes and a lot of the gender characteristics on their head. Now for something like this, for Puppet Killer, again, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's definitely celebrating the things that we've come to love in the genre. So to be able to flip those, it puts your fingerprint on it. Now, is that something right there between you two? Was there any butting of heads on certain things at all? Was there none? Like saying, well, I don't think this person should be a guy, it should be a girl. Nothing like that at all from script to stage.
We both just looked at each other silently and shook our head. I don't recall anything.
Okay.
Which is, again, I think it was magical. I don't know. I've never written with someone else before, so I don't know if it's normal to get along this well, but we both saw the same movie.
Yeah.
And anytime someone suggested something, it was like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Like, he could have pushed me on the Jamie Lee Curtis thing because I wanted to name the lead characters Jamie Lee and Curtis, and I think that came way after, right? No?
I don't know.
It's not, it never is in there because there's no.
And honestly, it scares me to even talk about things sometimes because I'm always scared of stealing something you did. It was so seamless.
Yeah.
I don't remember who had what ideas. It just happened. And he, fuck.
I mean, when I first wrote the draft, it was very much like the first draft was very standard slasher formula.
It makes sense.
Like that's how I approached it, even though it was even though it was a pink fuzzy puppet, right? That was the challenging part because it's like when I'm so used to having like a big killer, right? And I kept saying, writing it, going, no, Kev, he's like a little pink puppet. Think about it. How is he gonna like?
Influence from Child's Play.
A little bit. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that's credit to you too. That I don't know if people always can respect. Like this film only works because there's one element. Right? If Simon could fly, I always say this. Or I remember one time we sent off the B team to get some camera roll, and it came back, and he could like walk up a tree, and I was like, that can't work because we can only have one moment of magic, and then the rest of the world has to be real.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
And Kevin got it. So he thought about how long would it take a little puppet to get from the back door to the front door.
All the
how is
logistics,
this,
right?
And so the two of us together made sure we created a world where he physically
lived
existed
in
and had the limitations of it. He just happened to be a puppet who was alive.
Was that addressed at all in script stage? Or was it just more about the logistics, about certain restrictions at all? Because that's a very interesting concept when it comes to it, because you're creating this character which throughout the story you're building towards, and to actually have world building rules instead of just allowing it to be any sort of thing that it wants to because it's magical or supernatural, whatever. Nothing, was there anything like that, or was that really addressed later on?
I think it was really addressed during the script phase. Really, we thought about all the logistics, all of that kind of stuff, like where Simon is at any given time, like where is he, like what is he doing, like even though I'm writing stuff that you see on screen, I have to remember what's going on with all the other characters that are not being shown at that moment, so you're creating this whole world to play in. It was one of those lightning striking movies in a way, when people say it was like lightning strike,
right? Exactly.
And it felt like that a lot of times, where it just felt so natural and just really clicked. Because it was risky a little bit, when you're doing a really outrageous sort of concept like this. It's so fun for me. Like it just was, I don't know. For me, it just was really an easy project in a way to write and have fun with and play in. And Lisa and I just really work well together because we understand the genre.
You're talking about balancing tropes with something that's a little bit original.
Yeah.
And especially fans of the 1980s, they're not necessarily open to much originality. They want their Freddy Krueger, they want their Jason Voorhees. So how important is it to play the film festivals and have the crowds in front of it to experience this and put out word of mouth on it?
Well, in this day and age, that's your free marketing budget, right? So as a self-indulgent filmmaker, I want people that love horror to watch it. So that's serving to me as an audience to have people enjoy it. Watching it with horror fans has been so rewarding.
Yeah.
So rewarding. And they're really great. They have been helping us with word of mouth, and we have been playing all over the place and winning awards. And whenever you win like a fan favorite or an audience choice, it's like the sweetest one, right? You're just like, thank you so much. But I was actually surprised at how many non-genre film festivals we've played at. That fully floored me.
Versatility of the film.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? You're okay, cool, playing our film.
But I think what really sets as well, you were saying, like, fans, they're used to seeing the standard sort of stuff over and over and over again, right? But this one, I think people are really picking up on this really kind of interesting, quirky, fresh kind of vibe going on.
It's that balance.
It's that balance, and the credit to the actors. I mean, they have this energy, this on-screen chemistry that worked. So the audiences are really picking all that up and having a lot of fun.
And I also think too, there's so many Easter eggs in it because just self-indulgently, me and Kevin love horror. I think this was just us finally getting to make what movie would you make if like there was no boundaries? Yeah. Right. We would make a love story to 80s slashers, and like you said, there was a little bit of the 90s in there too with our Evil Dead and whatnot.
I mean, there's reference in there that I'm not even aware of because when I write it, it's there subconsciously. Because I know I've been watching this shit forever, you know?
And I think that's why audiences are resonating, because they get to be rewarded for their love of horror. They get to be like, oh my God, I totally got that reference. And like, did you get this one? And like, it's so layered that people want to watch it about 2 or 3 times. Like,
we're getting
the
that.
Jamie
People
Lee
wanna watch it
Curtis,
over and over
the
again.
name joke, it's about a 50-50. Some people get it, because I only do it once. They only say their names in order once. Yeah. And when people get it, I just think that they're feeling rewarded for like their love of the genre.
I mean, we're fans who made a horror movie for us and the fans. Really.
How difficult was it to work with Simon?
He was a little shit.
He was a little shit, exactly. That's exactly
Such a fucking diva.
I'm sure.
He wanted his own trailer. We're like, who's got money for a trailer?
It's funny, last night listening to them talk about She Never Died, and Oliver talking about the dog being the most difficult out of all of them. It's like, you don't really think about it because you're like, oh, it's an animal, it's cute. Oh, it's a puppet. But to be able to, pun intended, puppeteer it, to be able to go ahead and build the world, to have the world build the rules and have a human embodiment to it and have that connection to what Alex is bringing to the screen, it's a complicated process. So talk about Simon in this process.
That's such a good point. And I mean, and I have to say, I don't want to not give myself credit, but I also have to say ignorantly, like, I don't think I understood what I was getting into. And I was like, my first feature film will have a bunch of big actors. The killer will be a puppet. We'll have no money. We'll shoot over 3 weeks in Christmas, an hour and a half from town.
In the dead of winter.
In the dead of winter, like, and luckily I'm just stubborn and mildly naive, so I was like, lean into it, it's gonna work. And so I didn't have any knowledge of puppets when I wrote this film. I had certainly never directed a puppet.
I would have laughed more if you said you did have knowledge of puppets.
But what happened is, again, Vancouver, the film community, and we're finding that in Toronto too, it's so sweet, but Maury Bernstein was one of the puppeteers on Team America. And she got wind that we were doing this, and she was like, look, you clearly can't afford me on set, but do you want me to be your puppet consultant? And so she came in and did camera tests with us. She taught me rules I didn't understand. Like, once he's established as alive on screen, you can never have a hand outside of him, even if he's on the ground. Like, there's a spirit in him now. And so I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And the scene in the bathtub, my puppeteer is underneath my actress in the bathtub. We can't show her because we did all practical, right? So we're not blue screening out people. I wanted it to be like a 1980s film, like The Thing we were talking about. I mean, I'm not likening it to The Thing, but just knowing that it's practical.
Practical effects.
And it was practice. And Asia Matu, my puppeteer, had never puppeted before. She was one of my improv students. She's very tiny, and she's a double black belt, and she's bendy. Those were the criteria.
Bendy.
She's bendy, so I could get her in small spaces. And I was like, do you want to do a movie? You're going to be a puppet. And she had never done it, and she spent every day with Simon. Days that she wasn't on camera with Simon, she was there playing with the puppet, working out scenes, and we literally just figured it out. Like, sometimes they'd be like, how are you going to do this shot? And I would be like, I don't fucking know, it's a puppet. We got to do it to know. Like, we got to, and there's like times where I was like on the ground under Curtis while we're doing the Friday the 13th one, and I'm like, do you mind if I get in there? And he's like, go. And I'm like in between his legs. I'm like, I think you're going to come up here, and you're going to do this. And we just fucking figured it out.
Talk about the audio aspect of it.
Oh my God.
Because nowadays, to get into any festival, if there is not that audio component there, you're not even going to get through the door. It doesn't matter how much you pound. It doesn't matter how many tropes and homages you have. You got to have it right there. So talk to that.
Okay, well, number one, if any filmmaker out there is listening, spend money on audio.
Yes.
On location audio is so important. We lost a full day's audio, and it was never recovered. And it ended up being the most beautiful, happy accident because it was the campfire scene.
Yes.
And we were going to get them all in for ADR, and when I watched it, I went, I think it plays better silent.
It did.
And so our on-set, other than that, which I'm not blaming them for, it's just something that happens in indie film, our sound designer, Rob Faneuf, is amazing. I have done almost every one of my features, because before directing I was producing and I've been acting, and I've done a lot of films with Rob, but he spent so much time on Foley and all of these things, pulling it together to get this 5.1 mix that sounds like it costs so much more than and it should have. The value of what they brought was there. We just didn't have the money. And so, yeah, that was, there was some scary moments, actually, just because we didn't have a lot of money at the time when we did it. And it took 2 years in post. And so you'll go back for something and it's mislabeled and you're like, I don't even know where that is. Julia, again, my finishing editor, I think needs to get so much credit. She had to hand sync everything again because the files were converted incorrectly. And when it went into storage and we got the money to finish, she pulled it out and everything had to be hand synced and labeled every shot, which was fun. That poor woman. So that was a team thing. Oh, fuck, I love my team. I love them so much.
Stephen Gallagher, who came on board as our composer, which was amazing. I mean, he was involved with the Hobbit movies, right? Doing
And the Lovely Bones.
And the Lovely Bones. And, it was amazing that he came on board. Lisa, how did you contact him? You basically sent him a message?
No, I was in LA. And one of my girlfriends, and I was just talking about all the things that we needed to get done, and I was in LA, and I was like, I'm just going to ask fucking favors. I got to finish this film. And she's like, oh, I know Steven from New Zealand. It's Nat Bolt, who plays Penelope Blossom on Riverdale. She was in LA for something. And she's like, oh, I know Stephen Gallagher. And I was like, I looked him up on IMDb and I was like, oh no, we have no money. Like, I love it, but we have no money. And I was even nervous for her to connect us. And she's like, nobody loves horror. So she connected us on Facebook. I kept reiterating, like, no money, like not Hobbit, no money, no money. And I sent him a rough of the film, and within 2 hours of him getting it, he got back on and was like, I'm in. I love this film. I love 80s horror. And I was like, no money. Like, I keep telling you, we paid him, but we didn't pay him what he was worth. Not because we didn't want to, but, and then we would do Skype sessions, and me and Rob would be like, are we about to Skype Stephen Gallagher? And
I mean, his score is referencing the 80s as well.
But that was it. He loves
just
it.
Just was insane to me. I'm like, no way, this is awesome.
And he would, he got what I said, but similar to Kevin, I said, here's what I want and here's the feel, and I want it to have that synthy 80s, and I want to feel Simon and I want to feel Jamie, and so he wrote a theme song for Simon and a theme song for Jamie, and he takes the whole film to mirror them, and then they lay beside each other in the final, and it's so brilliant. Like, he would send me stuff, and he's like, any notes, Lisa? And I'm like, no, keep doing you.
Yeah, keep doing what you do.
I mean, we went back and forth a bit, but we are so lucky for the people that jumped on board.
The people that jumped on board in this film was insane,
What's a pitfall you wanted to stay away from?
In this experience or in life?
You sat down. You're dealing with a lot of very familiar tropes. You're dealing with a lot of stuff that people have seen.
Yep.
You're putting your fingerprint on it. What's something you wanted to stay away and you didn't want to fall into that pitfall?
Believe it or not, to a fault or to a credit, regardless of how hard it was to make the film behind camera, and that's just part of indie film, there's a million things I regret in that capacity. Believe it or not, and it's something that actually surprised me as a first-time feature director with practical and the puppet, it's actually exactly as I envisioned it. Like, it actually worked out for me. That doesn't mean it was the right, I'm sure there's choices I could have done differently. I have zero regret about what landed on film. I feel for me and what Kevin wanted, we balanced it pretty well between the comedy and the horror, and so I don't have any regrets of what our final product was. I would probably change a lot of how we made it behind the scenes, but that's indie film. You learn as you go.
I mean, right? I think that one of the pitfalls could have been where we use CGI effects here and there, where we sort of swayed away from the actual origins of 70s, 80s horror, right? Like, we wanted to honor that.
Yeah.
That would have been a pitfall if we would have actually went down that road of like, no, we're going to do this instead of that. But we really honored those films.
That is such a good point, as in it could have been, because I have that memory. And again, you're a first-time director. You're fighting for what you want without trying to overstep your lack of knowledge. But I do remember a day when we were doing Jesse's kill in the bedroom, the barbed wire. That is a full puppeted moment. We rehearsed. We got the camera. And there was certain people there literally holding a blue screen going, let's just fucking blue screen it, Lisa. Let's blue screen it. And I fought fucking hard for that. I was like, that is not the film I'm making. I will make up that time somewhere else. This is too important to me. This is Thing, Chucky, all of these things. And I was like, trust me. So I think it was like, I was stubborn too. I think I fought for some stuff.
So those are the pitfalls that you were avoiding, really.
But we managed to avoid them by knowing what we wanted before we went to camera, being very specific with Kevin and me and our vision, and very specific with our actors. The other thing that could have failed miserably was the age. If we'd have leaned into that, if we'd have made any wink to that,
spending a line.
It would have ruined the whole film. And so again, it just came down to the direction. Play the drama. Don't even acknowledge it. Him when he wrote it, me when I directed it. We didn't out, acknowledge it.
There was a moment that it felt like an ABC after-school special at times
totally.
because of the age with it, but that's also something because you talk about it. You said debut, right? Okay. Horror and comedy. How many filmmakers get away from horror and comedy hybrids? They don't. I can tell you many filmmakers I've talked to that say, I don't want anything to do with it because balance. It's so hard to balance.
It's so hard to balance.
I knew going into this, I had a 90% failure rate. I knew 90% failure rate, 10% success, and then because we also added so many more complicated elements. But again, either it's because I'm stubborn or I don't know. But I love horror. I'm good at comedy. There's things I'm not good at, but I'm good at comedy. That's where I do well, and I teach it, and I felt confident in my actors. But I mean, that could have fucking gone
But the blending
bad.
of the horror and comedy, that's the trick, right?
Yeah, very much so.
It's really challenging to do.
We started using the term comedic slasher because no one wants to touch a horror comedy. And like, so even talking to distributors, you're like, it's not what you think. Thankfully, they're watching it and loving the buzz. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that I knew going in, and I think that's why I was so stubborn. I was like, this is my one shot as a director. I'm actually going to lean in so hard to my choices so that at least it's mine when we fail or we succeed.
I just want to give a shout out to Ryan Nicholson, who was our visual effects practical artist, right? And, you know, he just brought all that too, right? He brought in the 80s, he did it, and it was just so amazing.
He crawled through the snow,
my God.
Following our victims, pumping blood as it comes out of their neck, and him and his wife Megan. Everyone on it got what we wanted, and we are so lucky.
So the reason this film, I think, is really working is because we had a shitload of incredibly talented people come on board with us
100%.
who understood the genre.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
And the fans are loving it. So
Fans are loving it.
we're just having a great time with them now.
Congratulations.
So thank you so much. Yeah.
And